Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video.
This week I filled this tiny sketchbook, and yes, this video is about me sharing my creative process for it with you, but it's gonna be deeper because as I painted this, I reconnected with some gentle life lessons that apparently I needed to be reminded of. So I figured if these reminders felt good for me, maybe they'll mean something for you too. So today, as I share with you what I painted, I'm also gonna be sharing what came up for me in the process. Welcome to my channel. My name is Paula. I'm a full-time artist, and if you're not new, welcome back and thank you for letting me show you what I created.
Let me show you this little sketchbook that I actually got, I guess, almost half a year ago. I saw it and added it to my cart with no idea on how I was going to use it, but I just wanted it. It's not a regular sketchbook, but an accordion fold. And to me, it felt so precious that I decided to create a paper mock-up of it instead of sketching directly on it. I wasn't sure on how I was going to make this work, and I didn't want to keep erasing on the nice paper. So I just felt better about trying my ideas on copy paper first. I started sketching to figure out how I would use this tiny sketchbook, mainly because I decided I didn't want the spaces to be treated as individual pages, but I wanted to take advantage of the zigzag and create one long piece of art, one scene like a little universe. And I got the idea to do it like this from a class by Emily Armstrong that I took on Skillshare, who happens to be the sponsor of today's video. In case you're not familiar with Skillshare, it is the largest online platform for creatives like you and me. It has so many classes and in so many categories. Anything I've been curious about, I found a related class on Skillshare, and they are all led by industry leaders. The amount of art classes alone is incredible. Any media, any style, you got it. And I'm talking about classes on illustration, content creation, watercolor, painting, photography, and that's just some. They are constantly adding new classes, and you won't be doing the class alone since Skillshare has a learn by doing approach in which you can share the projects you create with your class and the community. And you can do all of this for free since the first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So yeah, Emily's class on Skillshare gave me this idea, and I thought a tiny book would be the perfect place to create a tiny world. And my theme is mermaids because I was chatting with my friend Ashley, and she asked me if I was going to do anything for mermaid, and I said no. I had nothing planned, but it sounded like fun. I've never done anything for mermaid before, and I thought, okay, so how can I make it special? Maybe I can fill an entire sketchbook for it. But honestly, I still haven't gotten over the experience of doing all of the Inktober prompts in 3 days. I'm still tired about that. So I just did not have it in me to try something like that again, especially knowing I only had like a day and a half for this project. Then I remembered that I bought this tiny book and I thought I could definitely finish in a day or two. So here I am drawing this sort of ocean scene where the mermaid is sitting on a rock and then her hair slowly merges onto the ocean where another mermaid is swimming with a whale. On the other side of the book, I chose to do a mermaid listening into a conch shell in the foreground with hair also flowing onto an ocean filled with more sea creatures. In one of the panels, I drew some stacked shells because at this stage of my creative process, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do something this tiny, it needs to be super interesting and unique. And I thought a way to do that was to add pop-up elements. Shells could be one, 2 little fishes popping up the center could be another one, and so on. If you've seen my Create This Book series, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I truly overcomplicated Create This Book by making it interactive and pop-up, and my plan was to do the same here. Still, I had a lot of blank panels that needed drawings, so I asked my daughter for suggestions on what to include, and it turns out the entire For You section of her Instagram is ocean themed. How beautiful is that? So I got some great ideas off of that, like adding some stingrays and an octopus. With the sketch done, all I had to do is redraw it in the actual book, which I did off camera to avoid boring you with the same things. So far, so good. Emotionally, I still thought everything was going okay. I even cut some paper to figure out how to make this book pop up a bit. I wasn't sure on what to do, but I figured I'll get to that later because first I wanted to outline the main parts with a super thin marker so that I wouldn't lose details when painting over the whole thing. I started to slowly outline my drawing. I really enjoy this part. And somewhere in this quiet process, I started to reflect on how I was feeling about the piece now that I was making it, as opposed to how I felt before starting, when the idea of painting a mermaid sounded like so much fun. I've never painted one before. I started to feel that my impulse to have a pop-up element on this tiny book was coming from my need to create a showstopper, or something that you would truly appreciate in a video, and that started to feel heavy. In this quiet process of inking, I reconnected with the Inktober experience, on how that felt on my body and how mentally exhausted I was when I finished. And for some reason, that made me feel I should not draw anything on the panels where I was going to have the pop-ups because I still didn't have solid ideas for those. Until my creativity kicked in, I started to use watercolors to paint the scene. I thought that was going to be the best media for the job since the paper could take it, and I was envisioning all these beautiful gradients of color. I started with the mermaid. I wanted her hair to go from yellow to blue in the order of the rainbow, having each color blending to each other and finally blending into a blue that extended into the ocean that would cover most of the panels, going from lighter to darker all the way to the end where the stingrays were. On the other side of the mermaid, I wanted to show the surface of the ocean, having the rock that she's sitting in divide in surface and depth. Can you tell how much I loved the Little Mermaid as a kid? The first step was to fill all of the blank spaces with light washes of color, on top of which I would layer more watercolor to create bright elements accentuated with colored pencils. I still thought about having two fish pop up in the middle, opposite to each other like yin and yang, so I tried to paint the background in a circular motion like a swirl of water was occurring between them. As I did this, the horizon that I painted dried so I could add the sun and some sunset colors to the sky. Everything was colored now, but I felt frustrated about this underlayer of color. I thought something wasn't looking right, so I decided to leave it at that for the first day and come back to it with fresh eyes later. On the next day, I felt lighter, so I made the choice to get my acrylic markers out and try to cover the part of the hair that I didn't like. At that moment, I thought I would fix the hair and continue with my original plan. But taking that little distance from the project and coming back to it on the next day with a fresher spirit allowed me to be nice to myself and understand that maybe I just need to change my plan and the medium I was going to use. I know explaining this sounds weird, but sometimes I give myself a hard time for changing a set plan. But on that second day, it was easy for me to be understanding with myself and just do it. I mean, the only rules that existed were my own. Because the area of the hair was small, the ink of the markers stayed wet long enough that I could mix them a bit as I layered them. I was so happy about this, and this video is not sponsored by these markers. I just really enjoy using them. This set has 90 colors, 90, so reaching out for them brought me a ton of joy. I had so many colors to play with, and it's funny how I love these so much and my bestie Ashley hates them. We keep talking about this. We've had such different experiences with them. She always gets dried up markers on her sets. I have no clue why, because luckily I haven't. And I was feeling these were so perfect for the mermaid's hair because I could play with all of the colors and go back over things that didn't work. The more I used the markers and saw the hair coming together, the more my joy for this project came back. And as it did, I noticed that how I was thinking on the previous day made me lose the joy for the project. I had allowed my need to impress or wow others to override my excitement. I was so happy with the idea of filling a tiny sketchbook with a mermaid theme, but then my idea seemed so simple and I started to add on to it, putting pressure on myself and with that, stealing my own joy and making it feel more like work. Now you may think, well, but this is your job. You are a YouTuber. And I am, but not entirely. I guess I will be a full-time YouTuber when YouTube takes care of all my bills, but that is certainly not the case now, not even close. Right now, YouTube is something I do because I love it. And yeah, I discovered I'm obsessed with it. It's fun and I love our community here. And I always feel so honored and happy that I get to share with you. But I didn't start this channel to have a second job that stressed me out. I started it because when I turned my hobby into my job, painting I mean, I lost something for a little while. I thought I lost the freedom of trying different creative processes and painting random stuff, doing things that spoke to my soul, because being a full time artist and creating fine art works means you have to do a lot of stuff besides painting what you want. You have to create collections of your most popular work because you need to sell those pieces of art and get that income. And then you have to market your art and you have to pack it and ship it and post it. It's a lot of work and not as free as it seems. I guess not until you hit it big. So I wanted to make stuff without feeling the pressure of needing to sell it. And YouTube seemed like the perfect excuse to do that, following into the steps of creators I love and admire, and that always seem to be making something fun. So bringing out all of these markers and coloring the mermaid's hair with all of the colors of the rainbow and making it so bright and beautiful, just like I envisioned it at the very beginning of my creative process, really brought me back to my joy and to the reason I started this channel. So yes, I want to do my very best to share beautiful projects with you, but I just realized that in trying to do that, I put a lot of pressure on myself that nobody asked for, and I forgot to think about what my heart needed. By the time I finished painting the hair and I merged that last color to the background with a wet brush, I was in love with the process again and felt so happy when I realized I did not need to stress myself and add a pop-up. I needed to enjoy this. I wanted to enjoy it. So now I decided to use my colorful, beautiful markers for the whole thing and to flow with it. Starting with the first panel by going back to the sunset and working on top of what I had. I mean, the markers were perfect to add the reflection of the sun and the highlights for the water that I didn't do with the watercolors. I also used the markers to better create the idea of the splash by adding white to the water and deeper colors with many shades of blue. I think it was easier for me to paint it this way. So I kept working on the area, adding clouds and highlights to the water, and when I was happy with it, I moved back to the mermaid to finish the rest of her body. So I just went over everything with the paint, adding details and shadows, and I especially enjoyed the way I was able to create the texture of the scales for her tail. I had to go back with a mechanical pencil and redraw the face. The pencil allowed me to be more accurate at this tiny scale. After polishing the hair a tad, I started to outline the jellyfish, making the water darker around them. And then I thought, you know what? I'm definitely gonna give myself a break and truly enjoy this process. I'm loving painting with this marker, so I'm just gonna paint fish here. This made me so happy, and this is the lesson that filling this tiny sketchbook gave me. It reminded me to find my joy. No, actually, it reminded me that finding my joy should be a priority. And that is what I wanted to share with you. When you feel passionate about something and you act on that, even if it's just for a few moments of your day, it allows you to instantly connect to your soul, and that will bring you deep peace and happiness. So if you want to make something and you stop yourself because of fear of comparison or because you think you won't like the results of your work, please take a moment to think about yourself first and think about what will bring you joy regardless of the end result, and just do that for yourself, for no one else. That is my biggest message, because when I've done that, things have lined up and worked out for me. So I happily painted layers and layers of tiny fish silhouettes, and they are not perfect, but they made me happy. With the fish done, I went back to the jellyfish. I was happy I could layer the light colors on top of the dark ones to easily create the illusion of their translucency and soft consistency. I liked how the whale turned out with the watercolors, so I did not cover it completely with the paint markers. I just added a little bit of paint to the edges and the areas I wanted to correct, and then merged the acrylics with the watercolor background with a wet brush. For a moment, I thought the whale needed a darker outline, so I used the black marker, and I instantly regret that. So I let it dry while I work on the mermaid a little bit, trying to improve the drawing with the markers and trying to make her position seem a little more accurate and make her look like she was actually swimming with the whale. Then I went back to the whale and covered the black, and I just barely outlined it with my very fine marker. I really struggled with the second mermaid. The scale of it was brutal, but at the end, I think the ability of painting over and over again with the markers yielded a result I could live with. I outlined the jellyfish a bit so that everything would match, and it was time to move to the other side. I decided I would again paint everything with watercolor first so that I wouldn't have any white spaces. It was much faster to paint the whole page like this. I started with the mermaid again, instantly deciding that I did not want her tail to be green, but pink. And I actually looked up some fish references to paint this one, which was, of course, instantly better. I layered a bunch of colors, and the shape of it just made more sense and seemed more organic and fitting of a beautiful sea creature. So when I finished this tail, I decided to turn the paper back again and fix the shape of the first one to make it match. Easy thing to do by painting over stuff. Added some more darker colors to that side too. Then it was back to the other side and to finish the mermaid. Now I knew I wanted to make her hair purple, so I started working on that with different markers, just like I did with the first one, but this time monochromatically. I also blocked out where her hand was holding the seashell and where the shadows for her face were. I did use my pencil again to draw her face and hand, and I outlined it away from the camera because I had to get really, really close to the paper to do that. That hand was so tiny, it gave me so much trouble to draw. Although looking back at this footage, it looks like the first one I drew was okay, but I kept losing the shape of it once I painted it with the marker, so I went over it I don't know how many times. Same thing with the face, kept fiddling with it until I hit it right, which meant repositioning or redoing lots of things, just painting over and over and over until I thought I had it. Finally, I outlined her eyes with purple and adjusted the wonkiest parts. And because I spent such an insane amount of time on this mermaid trying to get the tiny hand right, I basically just got tired from it, and instead of having each finger drawn individually, I ended up giving her a cartoonish hand, making all of the fingers merge into one and calling it a day. Time to work on the middle part, which I now decided would be loads of colorful corals. For this, I just blocked out areas with color, filling all of the space with different blotches. When all of the space was filled, I started to add detail on top with other colors, with a quick detour to draw the silhouette of a turtle swimming in the distance. Back to the corals, and I'm basically doing mark making, which I love, dots, squiggles, and lines that look like leaves in nature. I really just had fun with this, didn't get any references. I just made the whole thing up because it was fun. Using so many colors, seeing how they combined, and just trying stuff. Which of course meant using so many of the markers and creating a happy mess on my desk. And last but not least, I had to color the octopus, which I thought was going to be purple, but because of the mermaid's hair, I decided to change to orange. Again, here I layered colors, building them up slowly, using the markers like I do regular acrylic paint with brushes. I decided not to paint the suction cups for its tentacles because I wanted it to look more cartoony to match the mermaid and the other elements I drew. And that's why I did the eyes the way I did too. Outlined it with purple to tie everything together, and before showing you the final result, I thought the cover needed a little love. So to embellish it, I drew on top of it with white, starting by creating a circle in the middle and then lots of details to the sides like dots and little hearts. I was trying to go for a vintage look, and I thought it was fitting to draw a small seashell in the middle. When the white dried, I went back over some of the areas with purples and magenta, trying for the colors to harmonize with the red elastic the book came with. And on the back, I just wrote Mermaid 2025. Here's the finished book. It's definitely not what I planned for, but I love it. I think it turned out super cute, and I especially love that it reminded me to enjoy my creative endeavors above all. It's a simple project that actually took a day and a half, but the result was worth it. Can't wait to see what you think about it, and if the lessons that this sketchbook reminded me of resonated with you. Remember, don't let things steal the joy of creating for yourself. If you'd like to see me fill a regular size sketchbook for Inktober, here's that video. And if not, you'll probably like this one too. With that, I hope I'll see you next Friday with a brand new video, and don't forget to like or share this one if you enjoyed it. Have the most beautiful day. Bye!